For those of you who don't know, every week on the show, I like to do what we call a Restore the Snyderverse update. Doesn't mean I always have any information or any real updates on what's going on, but I like to cover and talk about the latest when it surrounds the Snyderverse. One of the coolest things that happened over the last week was on Twitter. Zack Snyder started trending with a little goat emoji next to him. And it was hashtag. If you did hashtag Zack Snyder, it would pop up with a goat emoji. What are your thoughts on that? Do you, first off, was it real? That's the big question, because I don't think it was real. I don't know. Like,
in what sense do you
so
not?
I don't know how much you use Twitter, but on Twitter, the more something gets used, it'll auto populate for you. So like if I type in hashtag Zack Snyder and put a goat emoji, and I keep doing that, and me and 5 friends do it 500 times. If you then were to go and type hashtag Zack, as you were typing it, because it's been used so many times,
it just automatically pops up.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, with that, the reason why I don't think it's 100% real is because there was one for Jeff Johns.
Yes,
and it had a snake.
Yes, I definitely agree. So now that you've opened that viewpoint up,
yeah,
I definitely think that's I actually did not know that. I did not know about the more you use a hashtag, the more it just gets auto populated. I think is the term that you used. I find it extremely interesting at the times that these things are starting to pop up now. You know, I personally thought it was real. I was one of those people that just tweeted it out and then actually checked the Jeff Johns part of it all, and it was actually really interesting to see that. Personally speaking, I guess my standing on this is that I don't really care if it was real or not. I just love the fact that it is in existence in the first place. I think it's something that if it was tweeted enough times with the snake and the goat for that matter, it's definitely something to consider. You know, obviously we have our filmmakers from the 80s and 90s that have shaped cinema in the 2000s and 2000, I guess in the early 2000s, but you know, not for nothing, if you look at some of the cinematography in the Batman, which we'll get into a little bit later, if you take a look at just some of the modern day cinematography, you could definitely pull out little, I like to call them Snyderisms. Like, you could definitely pull out little, just similarities to Zack Snyder and everything. And I just think some of the tones of the movies that we've seen lately have been contributed by obviously Christopher Nolan's way of doing things, and then obviously Zack Snyder kind of taking that and making it more of a beautiful presentation with the tone to match it as well. So I think it's something that, you know, not a lot of people would view him as one of more of the influential filmmakers that we've seen in our era, but give it about 10, 15 years to cook up a little bit. And I do believe that he will be up there. He's made some, taking all his DCEU movies out of it. Watchmen was beautifully shot. 300 was beautifully shot. And it's just, I guess putting that much effort into how a movie looks is something that he has influenced a lot of filmmakers for sure. And obviously given his following with his DCEU movies as well, you know, he found a way to ground Superman in a semi-realistic world. And I felt like personally going into the movie that was something that was going to be next to impossible to achieve. So I felt like I feel like the way that he does his movies is definitely an influential way of modern filmmaking that you see today. Like I said, we'll delve a little bit more into the Batman later, but you could definitely see some parallels for sure of like the way Matt Reeves shot it versus how Zack Snyder shot his Batman as well. So I definitely could see it for sure. I personally think he's the GOAT, but obviously we have to speak from a objective standpoint. So
yeah, no, I don't believe that the goat and the snake thing were real. I do think it was something that you know, a handful of Snyder fans did, and it came across that it looked real for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And look, I'm a huge Snyder fan.
Oh,
I've loved I'm not a huge fan of Sucker Punch, but I appreciate it for what it is. I appreciate it for what it is. But I do. I enjoy his films, and Man of Steel, in my opinion, is still a masterpiece. I think it is the bar. That is the bar set for superhero origin stories, and it has yet to be met. But, you know, I do think that it's a slippery slope and it's a bit dangerous on what has happened with the fandom because, yes, I'm a huge Snyder fan. I love what he's done with the DC characters. And do I want to see his arc continue? Absolutely. But, I don't want to use the term that I'm thinking, but I don't think that, how do I put it? People need to kind of sit back a little bit because it's putting a very bad look on the fandom with stuff like that.
Yep.
And that is why I'm concerned with it, because when you sit back and you take a look at what the Restore the Snyder or Release the Snyder Cut fandom did back in 2017, 18, 19, 20, it wasn't doing little things like this. It was one goal, vision, let's move forward. Let's keep going and moving forward for that. And we've lost that as a fandom. There's so much hate and so much negativity. So when the fans do something that should be fun and exciting and cool and like something to laugh about, it actually looks bad.
Spiteful. It looks, yeah. And
exactly.
From what I've been able to read, it does seem like, regardless of the attention, or I guess the light of the attention, whether it's positive or negative, I guess any sort of publicity is somewhat positive. But I do understand what you're saying, that, you know, some of this stuff can come off as spiteful. I remember when the Suicide Squad trailer, when the first ever Suicide Squad trailer dropped for James Gunn's Suicide Squad, it was bombarded with Restore the Snyderverse comments. And while that is something that is obviously desirable amongst most of the fandom, you know, sometimes it is easier to it's sometimes hard to take a step back and realize that all these filmmakers are trying to fit their vision within what originally was formed by Snyder. Whether Warner Bros. wants to officially acknowledge it or not, the characters and the world that we are in was framed by Zack Snyder. So regardless of what the filmmakers do individually within their movies, everything was put into motion and set into motion by Zack, with Man of Steel, with Batman versus Superman. And, you know, obviously his influence on the Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman, and then obviously with everything that happened with Justice League. So I do understand that the fandom has become a little more on the rabid side of things for sure. But, you know, hopefully one day that enthusiasm does pay off in a more positive light for sure. So,
yeah. I don't know. I kind of got called out a few months ago because, you know, people were questioning my fandom when it comes to it.
Right.
And I want more than anything to see his art continue. I can't support and stick by all those who push the negativity and, you know, doing so much of what they do sometimes is just, it looks bad, and how they call out the different executives at Warner Brothers and everything. We know change is coming. We know that's coming, and to sit there and constantly berate and go on the Suicide Squad Twitter, you know, or James Gunn release a Snyder Cut, and just doing that, that's not fair to some of those people, because James Gunn was hired to do a movie. It's not, he's not going in there saying, oh, I'm going to screw over the Snyder fans. No, he had an idea. He pitched it. They hired him. He's doing it. It's a job, you know, like that is, he's a filmmaker. That's what he does. And then that goes for anybody. And I think it's wrong for the fans to go a different way. They've been doing it with the Flash, you know, with the Muschietti and with everything.
I was just about to comment on that. I think just purely based off of what the fans want versus what is, you know, it's easy to read the tea leaves on what's going to happen in the Flash. Very easy to read it, given what's coming after it and what characters are involved in some projects. But I do believe, I said this to a friend after watching the Batman, that I do believe the Flash is being set up to fail from the start, just because it's going to be so divisive amongst the fans versus, so you're going to have comic book purists that view that movie purely as a Flash movie. Then you have the Snyder purists who are viewing that as Warner Bros., I guess, final attempt to officially close the book on the SnyderVerse. And then you just have the new fans that are just genuinely interested to see what happens. And I do believe that three-way divide is just going to pull the reactions, I guess, from the fans at least. It's going to pull it in all different types of directions. I'm one of those people that is, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm interested to see how this movie kind of unfolds for sure, but I am realistic about it, and I also embrace the future. You know, it's maybe not the future we all envisioned maybe 5 years ago, but not for nothing, stranger things have happened. The Snyder Cut was released based purely off of fan interest in it, so can't really give up on that corner of the multiverse until I officially am told that nothing will happen. But just to piggyback off your point, I think the Muschietis kind of understood that going in, especially once the Snyder Cut was officially released. And not for nothing, I've heard a little things that Muschietti has made sort of little ambient changes to the movie that kind of fit within the narrative that Zack Snyder's Justice League set up. While whether those are confirmed or not, beyond me, but obviously you have certain hints of what's going to happen, but you also don't really know what the final product will be. So it's going to be interesting for sure. But I do unfortunately think with the fandom that it is, where it's at right now, is looking to rip apart the Flash movie before even, I guess, the full-length trailer is even released. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of months how Warner Bros. Tries to manage that storm for sure, because I'm sure they're expecting it.
Definitely. Give me 1 second here. We got Derpy Gaming. The Batman was a great film. Well, we're going to get into that in just a couple minutes, so stick around and you'll be able to jump in and talk about all you want to talk about when it comes to the Batman. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the Snyderverse is there's a lot of discussion about David Zaslav. And recently there was discussions about, or rumors came out that he was talking to creative minds, former directors at Warner Brothers and such, and trying to basically mend relationships that were broken over the last few years because of the way Warner Brothers was run. And a lot of people were, no, that can't happen. The deal's not finalized. He's not allowed to talk to anybody. He can't do this. He can't do that. And you're right to a point. Zaslav can't speak for Warner Brothers. He can't go out to people and say, oh, we're going to hire you for a Warner Brothers project, or we're going to do this with Warner Brothers. He can't do any of that right now. He can't do anything until the deal is finalized, at least in a official sense. But remember, he's in the entertainment industry. He needs to build relationships with creative minds, with filmmakers, with people who can make him money when he's running a company. There's no reason why he cannot be talking to Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder, James Gunn, Denis Villeneuve. He could talk to all of these people and say, look, let's mend our relationship. Let's see where our relationship is. And let's say in 6 months, in a year, he could turn around and say, hey, Zach, remember that conversation we had? Let's do the Snyderverse. So I want people to realize that, Zaslav can be doing certain things prior to everything getting finalized. He just can't speak on behalf of Warner Brothers at this point. And there's a lot of discussion already that he has a plan in place to replace a lot of the executives at Warner Brothers. That is going to be a huge thing that takes place. And that's going to be something that people like Snyder and Nolan, all these ones, Villeneuve, I can't think of some other ones that felt slighted by Warner Brothers, Patty Jenkins, after what happened the last couple of years. They're going to see this and say, okay, you know what? Let's see what they have to say now. And maybe they will, if they aren't there, like Nolan and Snyder, maybe they will come back and work with Warner Brothers again. So I think people need to relax a little bit and not jump to conclusions, not jump to any worry, because I think I honestly believe with Zaslav coming in, with this whole Discovery merger happening, will the Snyderverse get restored? I hope so. But even if it doesn't, I think this is going to be a really good thing for Warner Brothers moving forward.
I think Zaslav, just to piggyback over everything you said, is just from reading his interviews and reading everything, he's just in the business of monetizing as much as he can, just entertainment value, honestly. And it would be pretty, I guess, lack of a better term, stupid for him not to unturn every single stone that he has available to him. I know Christopher Nolan is a talent, obviously, and for Warner Bros. To strain a relationship with a director that's quite literally produced and directed movies that have brought in the highest grossing amounts for them over the last decade is something that should be repaired. You're talking more on a filmmaker standpoint and executive producer standpoint, but even some of the talents like Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, Ray Fisher, these are names that are obviously synonymous with DCEU projects, but there are projects that definitely fit their bills that if I had to bet, if I'm a betting man, I would say that some of them have some reservations with working with Warner Bros. Again until some sort of change is made. And, just having those conversations now, trying to mend fences now so that when things are fully up and running under his control, he can go to them and be like, hey, listen, we already have that, just like you said, we already had that discussion. Listen, if there's anything that you would like to do here, please let me know. We're in the business of trying to make, I guess, products for the fans that obviously are for the fans, but are also in the best interest of the company as well. And, I kind of harpen back to what Marvel's doing right now. They're kind of unveiling the curtain with everything and just being like, listen, everything you've seen is canon now. Like, everything that was under the umbrella of Marvel is you do need to see and watch. And that's something that I feel like Warner Bros. Could learn from, honestly. And that's that's not only for the DCEU, but that's just for all their projects. And I think that him outreaching now shows initiative that he does want to turn this around. He does want to change the reputation of it. Because right now, I'd be honest with you, it seems like it's Disney World and we're just living in it. I'd just be completely honest with you. It seems like they are a well-oiled machine. And I think Zaslav has definitely taken note of that and would love to get Warner Bros. Onto that working level for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what happens for sure. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode and what we all came to talk about.